Welcome to Livestream, everybody. Woo! I'm feeling hyped today. I don't know why. But I'm feeling hyped today. When I hit that music, I got going. I wanted to blast my eyeballs out with some LED lights. It was a mistake, actually. It was really a mistake. I should not have done that. I still am seeing after images. But that's okay, because I pushed through. Oh... Happy Monday evening to you. I'm a little distracted tonight. I almost forgot that I was doing a stream today because I'm getting ready to get on a plane tomorrow. Because I'm going. My wife got me a 20th anniversary present. Tomorrow I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to Vegas to do this. So that's what I was thinking about as I was like, okay, I gotta pack. I gotta, and then I was like, oh, it's Monday. I'm not on vacation yet. Yeah, my wife said, it's our 20th anniversary. And I said, absolutely. I was already tracking that. Definitely. I also am thinking about what to get you for our 20th anniversary, which is kind of a big deal. She said, I have an idea for something that I think you'll like. I was like, oh, well, no pressure. And then she looped me in on helping narrow down the options because she knew if she picked the wrong thing, then then I would. But this is I'm super excited about this. I'm gonna go to Vegas and I picked I forget how many of these cars. I picked like 5 of these cars. Hold on, I'll show you the cars I picked. You get to pick the cars that you want to drive. Hang on. Here they are. So I'm going to drive these cars. Except SOB, the Shelby GT500, which is the car I was actually most excited about trying, had a mechanical issue and is not available. So. But in case you're wondering, from a list of cars, what would Bardwell's dream cars be? These are the ones I picked. So. Yeah, of course the Shelby is broken. Yeah. I really wanted to drive the Shelby. I know I'm excited about all the cars to one degree or another, but I really was looking forward to driving the Shelby. It's such a I don't know, such an experience. Anyway. Oh, and I did ask, can I bring an FPV drone pilot and chase the cars and make a video out of it? And they said that you could bring a drone, but you could not fly the drone over the track because of the chance that the drone interferes with there's multiple cars on the track at a time, and the drone could crash into another person or create an insurance issue. And they said no. And I was like, well, that kind of takes all the fun out of it, doesn't it? So, no chasing the cars with drones. I'm torn on whether to vlog it. I don't know. We'll see. I might vlog it. Technically, it's a business trip. Technically, I'm financially obligated to vlog it because I put it on the business credit card. Therefore, if I make a video about this and post it to my channel, it's a business expense. So, anyway, that's where my mind is at. But not for the next 2 hours. For the next 2 hours, my mind is here with you and your questions, which Blunty is already queuing up. So let's get into it. Here's a great question. We normally save the super chats for a little later, but here's a $5 super chat from ABC123 who says, all my hardware supports PAL and NTSC. Which should I use? And the thing is, a lot of times when people think about PAL and NTSC, they think about that PAL is used in Europe and NTSC is used in the United States. And if you're old like me and you remember the days when, like, you would get a video game and the video game was an NTSC video game and you couldn't play PAL video games on NTSC TVs, and there was this big compatibility issue between PAL and NTSC. It's not an issue anymore, okay? In FPV, all the goggles that we use can receive both PAL and NTSC. And there is no regulation that says that in the United States you have to use NTSC and in Europe you have to use PAL, like there used to be with broadcast television. Okay? That's not the case anymore. With FPV, those regulations don't apply. You can transmit whatever you want. So, which do you pick? And the answer is PAL has slightly higher resolution but a lower frame rate. So PAL is like 525 lines of resolution at a 25 FPS frame rate, and NTSC is like 480 lines of resolution at a 30 FPS frame rate. I don't know. I don't always remember the resolution lines exactly right because there's the actual number of scan lines and then there's the visible number of lines. I don't always get the number right, but that's the gist of it. And so you decide whether you care more about resolution or whether you care more about frame rate. The difference is really negligible. Well, I say it's negligible. There are pilots who express an opinion. There are pilots who say, oh no, I always fly NTSC because the 30 frames per second gives me slightly lower latency. And they're not wrong, but I'm also a little like, does it? The difference is probably not noticeable to most people. You can pick which one you like the best. I will say, like, the HD0 goggles have this glitch. Mine do. I don't know if everyone does, but mine have this glitch where sometimes when you have an analog signal coming in through the module bay, the screen goes white. Literally, the screen goes white, and you just have to power cycle the goggles to clear it. You could drop back out to the menu, but the analog feed just goes white. And if you set the camera and the goggles to, I think it's NTSC, but I actually have forgotten. Because when it happens, I'm just like, and then I change it from whatever it was to whatever it is. If you set the camera and the goggles to either NTSC or PAL, I don't remember which, it fixes that problem. So there are situations where you can get issues. If you have a rapid fire module, when you bring up the menu is PAL. If you have an NTSC camera, then the goggles, when you bring up the rapid fire menu, the goggles may glitch slightly as they lock on to the change in signal. So if you're running rapid fire, it may make sense for you to run all your cameras in PAL mode so that when you bring up the menu, there's no shift from NTSC to PAL and the goggles don't have to relock. If you're doing a dual camera setup, like with a front-facing and a downward-facing camera, and you have a camera switcher, you need to have both cameras on the same thing, whether it's NTSC or PAL, so that when you switch, once again, the goggles don't get confused and have to resync. But for NTSC or PAL, there's a small technical difference in terms of resolution and frame rate. Practically speaking, it really doesn't matter for most people. Great opening question. Great opening question. Love it. UAV Futures here. UAV Futures is buffering. I have no dropped frames and no buffering on my end, so I'm going to guess that it's something to do with your connection down under. Sorry. That's insulting. I want to get this question before too much time goes on. This is a question from Jason Aviator. It's in the Discord, so I will not be... It was asked before the live stream began. That's why I want to ask it here before we forget it. You got it? Did he re-ask it?
He asked again. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Great. Thank you, Blunty. Blunty's, as always, on top of the comments. Jason Aviator asks, I just flew my first sortie with the Radiomaster dual band cross ELRS receiver using the Radiomaster Nomad. Hold on one second. I have a little bit of some sniffles today, so I apologize for that. If there's any luck, it's that it's getting warm and springtime's coming and I have allergies. That's what I'm hoping. The quad flew great. I had no control issues, but the Boxer radio was repeatedly sounding, sensor lost, telemetry lost. I've not experienced so many warnings using other receivers prior to this. Is there a setting I missed? So in the ExpressLRS Lua script, make sure you set telemetry to standard, STD. If you have telemetry set at a fixed ratio and then you change your packet rate, like let's say you've got 1,000 hertz packet rate and you manually set telemetry to 1/20. I don't know what the actual ratios are. That means you're going to get one telemetry packet every 20 frames, but there's 1,000 frames per second, so you get a ton of telemetry packets. If you then go down to 50 hertz, do you see that if you leave the ratio at 1/20, at 50 hertz, you're barely getting one telemetry packet a second, right? Well, you're getting 2 a second, actually. A little less than 2 a second. A little more than 2 a second. There we go. So what you do is you just set the telemetry ratio to standard, and then as you change the packet rate, it automatically increases or decreases the ratio so there are enough packets coming in. That's my guess as to the only thing I can think of that would be causing this. So the question, Jason Aviator, would be, do you have your telemetry ratio set to a fixed value? That could be it. That's my best guess. I hope that's right, because if not, then I got nothing. Why would you change your packet rate, asks Mike Konopka. Well, the higher packet rates have lower latency, good for racing and proximity freestyle, where reaction time and a smooth connected feel is desirable. And the lower packet rates have more range. That's the short answer. Jason Aviator says it was set at a fixed rate. Woohoo! That's a possible cause. I love it. Siphon House wants to know, any thoughts on the HD0 Box Pro and the subsequent leak by a certain fellow YouTuber? I have no comment about the leak. I didn't even kind of know there was a leak. But if a YouTuber leaked a video, then like either it was just a mistake. Like, I think I know who you're talking about, and I think that video got taken down because I saw somebody on Facebook saying, hey, where'd the video go? Shit happens. I have been annoyed at times in the past when I'm part of a big product release and someone breaks the embargo and releases their video early. But, whatever. I'm not the freaking YouTube police. That's between them. My theory is that embargoes are between the manufacturer and the creator. It's not my job to enforce an embargo on somebody else. So if there's a YouTuber that breaks an embargo and leaks something and the vendor is like okay with it, that's their prerogative. It's their product. They can give preferential treatment to whoever they want. So anyway, if there was a leak, I don't really have an opinion about that. But this is exciting, right? Anything to bring the cost of getting into the system down. The big question would be like, what is it? The Scout HD? Is that it? Is it the HD0? Is that the HD0 goggle? Or is that the Walk Snail one? I don't remember. Sharkbite transmitters. Yeah, okay. Sharkbite. Give me a break. So here's Fat Sharks. It's similar to this, but I don't even know if Fat Shark's still making this. I'm willing to bet that the HD0 one has all the menus and interface from the HD0 goggles, so it's going to be a much more fully featured, fleshed out product than the Fat Shark one. So,
I posted. I don't know if you saw in the Discord. I posted the list of features too.
Oh, nice. Here we go. Features.
To me, this is what makes it really appealing: is the list of actual features, because
let's see,
it's kind of insane.
Goggle runs Linux. All code for the user interface is open source. That's been true for the HD0 goggles for a while, right? 100 hertz screen, very nice. 1800 nits, that's very bright. Diopter lens inserts. 4 millisecond latency. So by going to these, normally when you go to the cheap goggles, you're stuck with a 60 FPS screen, you have higher latency, you don't get the full benefit of the system. It sure looks like this is giving you the full benefit of the HD0 system, which is the very, very low latency. 7 dBi patch antennas, 4 antennas. You're not giving up anything in terms of the antenna diversity. Amazing. And you could take the 2 dBi antennas off, and you could replace them with high gain antennas. All HD0 modes supported. Integrated analog receiver. Oh my God, I wish the HD0 goggles had a... Please give me HD0 goggles with a built-in analog receiver. Oh, please.
So the rumor is $300 for the price on these. Do you think they're going to have a good enough analog receiver in here that it'll be as good as like a Fusion that's $130 or a SpeedyBee that's $90? That's my concern with this. Is it going to be like a good analog module? I mean, it's HD0 and they've done great things in the past, so I kind of expect it to be good, but like...
That's an easy question to answer, okay? The thing that differentiates the good receivers from the mediocre ones, it's not just one thing, but there is one thing at least, and it is that the mediocre ones use the Richwave RX5808 receiver module, the same receiver module, I say RX5808, and if you've been in FPV long enough, you should just nod your head and be like, oh yeah, that one. It's the same sort of bog standard cheap receiver module that is used for all kinds of 5 gigahertz video transmission and reception. And then the really good ones, like Rapid Fire, Fusion, I don't know for a fact who else uses it. There's another chip, the name of which I don't remember. Can I find this old video? LiveU FPV. I'm going to try just briefly to find this, because now I'm curious. I remember the video where I learned this fact. TBS Fusion hardware upgrade. Better than Rapid Fire. Does he tear it apart? Does he show the inside? There's one where he shows the inside of the module. No, that's not this video. Hardware upgrade, an ugly truth about, yeah. Oh, bingo. I'm finding it. I'm so close. Is this it? Is it the RTC 6715 chip? Oh, man, I'm so close. Because the Fusion originally released with an RX 5808, and then there was a V2 of the Fusion where they upgraded to this chip. RTC 6715. Yes, that's it. Yep, that's it. Okay. I'm so proud of myself for looking this up. So the really good modules like Rapid Fire and Fusion have this RTC 6715 chip instead of the RX 5808 chip, and it is simply a more sensitive receiver. It is just a better receiver. It'd be like I said, I have a VTX that transmits 1 watt, and I have a VTX that transmits 5 watts. Which one's going to give me better range? You go, like, obviously the 5 watt one. Okay? This is just a better receiver, and it's more expensive. So, I would say if the goggles don't have this chip in it, they are immediately at a disadvantage, and I don't think they're going to overcome that disadvantage. So, I would ask, in fact, I'm going to ask right now, and he probably won't answer on the live stream, but I'm going to literally ask Ryan Quellet. By the way, congratulations, Ryan Quellet, on your new position as, yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
I'll just point out, Jai Smith says they're all the same RTC chip, but the module is different. You want the module with the additional ground pads next to the antenna.
What?
And Jai, I'm sure Jai knows. What you're talking
Jai obviously knows. They all use the RTC chip? It's not the RX 5808? Oh, is it the A602 4346? I don't know. What's the differentiator then? Okay, I'll get the facts right. Where did Jai say that? In the chat, I guess. Let me see.
in the YouTube chat.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad Jai... See, say one thing wrong on the internet, and then you'll get straightened out. You want the module with the additional ground pads next to the antenna. One is receiver and one is transmitter. So here's the thing. Jai Smith, what should I ask Ryan Quellet to find out if the HD0 goggles are going to be more like a Rapid Fire or a Fusion, or more like one of the legacy modules that just had the objectively less sensitive receiver module? What should I ask him?
Okay, let's go back to the feature list while we're waiting on that.
Okay, let's do.
And the reason I say that is because two other questions I had were answered in the next two lines of the feature list.
Okay. Hold on.
Which is when we really look at how these compare to other options, okay? The first one, HDMI input with 1 millisecond latency, supporting resolution 1080p 60 and 720p 100.
In other words, it's perfect for walk snail. It can do walk snail 720p 100.
HDMI output. So we're getting a $300 pair of box goggles with HDMI in, HDMI out, low latency HD0, hopefully a good analog receiver that's integrated.
What resolution is it? It doesn't say the screen resolution. Is it 1080p?
Yeah, I suspect it's 720, but it might be 1080.
Not the end of the world if it's 720, and they just down-res the 1080.
Yeah.
A 1080 input. But that's massive, because you could do the walk snail receiver module with 1 millisecond input, that's like nothing, and still do 720p 100. You could essentially do walk snail on these goggles with no downside. That's hot. That's hot. That's a great set of goggles. I wish that they would release an HD0 goggle with the built-in analog module. Ask for a pic of their RX 5808 module, or if they designed their own. Well, I don't know if they're going to do that. Let me just ask him this. I'm going to ask him.
I think you need to ask the thing we want to know, which is, does it have what's the frame combining and what are the two phrases?
Yeah. Hang on. Okay, I'm going to ask him. We'll see if he answers.
Okay.
Also, awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Microphone input, AV input, head tracker output, 2D interlacer, that we've seen before. And then also option for her ESP32 built in and Wi-Fi video streaming through the goggles. So
like the Wi-Fi module for the big goggles.
Yeah. Excellent. I mean, these are like almost every feature you could ask for in something like this that would be in a $300
set of goggles.
If 300 is accurate, like that's amazing. This is a great SKU.
This is a baller set of goggles. I've often said that the HD0 goggles are in some ways the best goggles to buy, even if you don't run HD0. Like, except that they're so expensive. If these come in at $300, they're still box goggles, but whew, that's mighty tempting. It's so weird. I really feel like HD0 is so HD0 the ASIC. I guess it's an ASIC. The ASIC at the heart of HD0 was designed by Carl and his team years ago, and it wasn't originally designed for FPV. And once it costs millions of dollars to design an ASIC, potentially. I don't know how much HD0 spent on designing it, but potentially it's millions of dollars to design and produce an ASIC. And then once you've produced it, you sell a shitload of them and you make your money back. That's the thinking. because the ASIC can do something very complicated very fast. But once you do it, you're locked in. You can't change it without reinvesting a lot more money into changing it. And I often think that HC0 is in some ways hamstrung by the need to be locked into this ASIC. And I wonder, because clearly they are an extremely capable company. If you look at the products they make, they are so good at giving you what your customer wants, understanding what you want, delivering a product that does all the things you want at a good price. But the heart of their video system is so focused on low latency and is so deficient in terms of range and penetration. I wonder, in another universe, if Carl could snap his fingers and replace his current ASIC with a different one and start over again, how might things play out differently? I don't know. All right. How are we doing for Super Chats? Let's double check the Super Chats. Let's get a couple Super Chats out of the way. Here's a 10 spot for a drink. Well, thank you very much, Michael Jones, for the $10. Eugene Towels, thank you for $2 Canadian. 4G LTE or Starlink for the long-range Surface Bardmobile. Starlink all the way, buddy. I guess that's, I take it back. If you're in an area where you're reasonably confident in the 4G coverage, then probably a 4G or LTE modem would be the way to go. Because with a ground vehicle, you're not super concerned with latency, probably. I mean, you could always just slow down if the latency gets shitty, right? But the flip side is that there are places where you're going to lose your cell coverage and Starlink will have coverage. But the flip side is that with Starlink, if I go under some trees, I'm going to lose coverage. So it really depends. I don't think there's a single right answer. I'll tell you what, though. Starlink Mini is such an impressive piece of technology. And I realize that by talking about Starlink, I'm potentially opening the door to people commenting on what they think about a certain executive of Starlink. Let's not do that. Let's just leave that stuff for another venue. But Starlink, the technology, is extraordinary. And I've been places where people had the big Starlink, and I was like, that's pretty cool. But it's like this big antenna, and then there's the ground unit, and there's the cable. And I was at a remote location recently, no cell coverage whatsoever. Just the middle of the wilderness. And this dude just pulls out of his backpack a Starlink Mini, and he's got a little DeWalt battery plugged into it with a 3D printed adapter of some kind. And he just plops it down on the roof of the car. 2 minutes later, we have internet. And I was like, okay, sold. I immediately... Literally, I bought one using his Starlink. I signed up for Starlink. No, that's not true. I waited till I got home. But I was like, if you're ever anywhere where you don't have cell coverage and you're like, I really wish I had internet right now, it's such a baller piece of technology. Such a baller piece of technology. It's not cheap. But for what you get, my God. Cluster Duck Garage, another 10 for you and the wifey. Thank you so much for the $10. Does she fly at all? Not at all. What's the difference between freestyle and racing props? Thank you, Mark M. Mark, freestyle props are usually focused on smoothness. They're generally lower pitch and make less thrust. Racing props are usually a little bit higher pitch and make a little more thrust, but are a little less smooth and a little bit less efficient. Thank you for $10 here from Sovereign Self. No question that I see. Let's just double check that. Sovereign asks, is there any news on Orca at all? Are they done as a company? Far from it. Far from it. Orca still exists. They're not really very active in the hobby market. Read the Orca Manifesto. Blah, blah, blah. Drive the robotic revolution. Substance over hype. Blah, 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 blah. All that nonsense. They just NDAA compliant. So they're making, NDAA compliant. That means not made in China components for multi-rotors. So they're focusing on the government market. My goodness. I'm sorry. I have a little bit of hiccups right now. I don't know why that is. I don't want to request a press kit. Yeah, in fact, they just, in December of 2024, secured another 5.8 million euros in seed funding. Blah, blah, investors, marketing, bullshit, don't really care. But they're like, I mean, somebody gave them 6 million euros. That's not nothing. They're still out there doing their thing. They're just not really focused on the hobby market as much, as far as I can see.
I will say, we reported a lot on Orca on the news over the years. The main thing Orca has always said from the very beginning is there's not enough money in consumer FPV to fund making good consumer FPV gear. That's their feeling. They're an engineering firm who added an Orca, which is their FPV part of it, or whatever, the Orca FPV. So they've always said they're going to do enterprise stuff. They've always said they're going to do military stuff, at least on a little bit, to fund the consumer hobby side. So while it is a bummer that they're taking giant enterprise and giant military contracts, we have to hope that their original promise that they said, which is they will pass that technology down to us and make it available and make good hardware, we have to hope that that will continue to happen, and we'll see those big $1 million development deals push into better hardware for the consumer.
I mean,
right? That's what we would hope from their original promises, right?
I feel like there's a little bit of an undertone to what you said, Blunty. You could buy their shit. Right? Oh, no. You could buy their shit. It's just super expensive because it's NDAA compliant. So it costs, so it costs 2x or 3x what Chinese-made stuff costs. Like, you can buy it. And the question is it that much better than the Chinese-made stuff that is available on the market? I don't know. Thanks, Rex FPV, for $2 because I said baller 20 times. Any idea why I switched to a baby Ratel 2 from the stock Kedix Ant and then I couldn't receive video on my goggles? Asks Metalcraft FPV. Surely it's an NTSC PAL problem, although surely the goggles support both NTSC and PAL. But that's like the only thing I can think of other than the camera just being out and out defective. Is an 1804 3500 kV motor good for 250 grams running 4S? I feel like that's a little bit of a big motor for a sub 250 build. Most sub 250 builds are going to be in the 14 to 16 millimeter motor size. 1804 is almost said baller again. It's a powerful motor that can make a really good little 3-inch, but it's not. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to keep it under 250 grams. Metalcraft asks, I used to have rolling video, but when I switched to PAL, it went away. It rolled in NTSC, but not PAL. That tells me the goggles are in PAL and not automatically switching to NTSC, which surprises me. They should switch. If you get video but no OSD, then manually set your Betaflight OSD tab, manually set it to either PAL or NTSC to match the camera instead of setting it to auto. Going back to the question about the 1804s, Ciotti FPV adds that you will need super pitchy 3-inch props like Gemfan 3052s to go with that motor. Ciotti, are you saying that the larger volume motor needs a pitchy prop to take advantage of its torque, or are you criticizing his KV? Cluster Duck Garage says, what would you build or buy for an indoor HD0 freestyle whoop? The new, whatever the new one, I reviewed it. There's a new lightweight with the HD0 all-in-one. That's the one, right? Digital Tiny Whoop under 20 grams. The HD0 AIO 5 flight controller makes it possible. It's the Mobula 6 HD Freestyle. That's like a very lightweight HD0 all-in-one and I've got a review of it up on my channel. I'll put a link in the chat. Siadi says, at 3500 kV on 4S, you need super pitchy 3-inch props or 3.5-inch to make a decent amount of power. Yeah, he is using 3.5-inch, he said, so he's good to go there. Okay. I'm collecting a lot of lipos now. Any suggestions for storing them in the house? No garage and sub-0 degrees outside. An ammo can. Go buy an ammo can from a military surplus store. Open up the ammo can and cut about 2 inches out of the gasket that goes around the lid. Don't remove the whole gasket or the lid'll just flop and won't close securely, but remove about 2 inches from the gasket, so that if a lipo pops off, the smoke can get out. And then if you really want to do it, you line that with like fire resistant. You can buy at the hardware store this like sheet material, and I don't know what it's made of, but it's fire resistant, and you cut it and you line the box with it, and that helps a little bit too. Okay. Going back to the regular questions. Is picture-in-picture in the DJI Goggles 3 a useful feature or just a gimmick? In my opinion, it's just a gimmick. In fact, every so often, I accidentally turn it on and then can't figure out how to turn it off, and I'm super annoyed because I never use it and I've forgotten, and it's a double tap. I know that now, but yeah. So I think it's just a gimmick. I never use it. There you go. The problem is it's so zoomed in. How do I know if I should buy a 5-inch FPV drone or get something smaller? How much space do I need for a 5-inch? Can I fly it at my park, over houses near me in my neighborhood? I would say I would not recommend that you fly a 5-inch drone over houses in your neighborhood or at your park, especially if you have to ask that question. And I'm not trying to be sort of condescending. Some people accuse me of being condescending. But, like, if Mr. Steele showed up at my house and said, I'm going to fly my drone over the houses in your neighborhood, I would be like, you do you, man. Like, because I think he probably understands the risks, knows how to mitigate them, and probably is not going to, like, crash on my neighbor's house. But if you're a beginner who kind of doesn't really know, then I would say I would say don't fly over your neighbor's houses. But if you must fly in a populated neighborhood, fly something small enough that if you drop it on somebody's head or somebody's car, that you're not going to do any damage. I'd say keep it under 3 inches or maybe even 2 inches, just for that sake. How much space do you need for a 5-inch? I fly 5 inches at my property. My property's 2 acres, 2.5 acres roughly. If that means anything to you. You don't need a ton of space if you're a good pilot. But if you fly it at the park and there's people walking around the park, you better be a good enough pilot and have situational awareness and good judgment and experience that maybe as a beginner you don't have, to know that you're going to fly to the park and you're not going to drop it on somebody's head or smash it into somebody's face. So, I think based on the feeling that I get from your question, you should get a smaller drone. Because it feels like this question is from an inexperienced beginner pilot, and it feels like the places you intend to fly have the potential to get a 5-inch drone in trouble, even if flown by an experienced pilot. That's my take. Sean England, no. Kyler Tarver asks, when setting up the Goggles 3 and the O4 Air unit brand new, does it force you to use remote ID? No, I cannot say this enough times. I will. Now it's going to go up on the Livestream Clips channel, so maybe people will start getting the message. The Goggles 3 only do remote ID when used with a DJI drone like the Avata. When the Goggles 3 and all other DJI goggles But the Goggles 3, the Integra, and the N3 specifically have GPS built in. And so people worry that they're broadcasting your location or some shit like that. When they are used with the Air units, they do not do any remote ID at all whatsoever. They do not. Not only is there no workaround, because there is nothing to work around. Keep beating that horse. Maybe the word will get out. You couldn't make them do remote ID if you wanted them to. That's the thing. Here's the thing. Let's say that I am a good boy. I am a good law-abiding citizen. I obey all the rules. The government tells me what to do, and I do it without question. I'm going to put remote ID on all my drones, even the ones under 250 grams. I just love licking boots. Wouldn't it be nice if DJI did broadcast remote ID so that I could comply with the rules without spending any money on this newbie drone BID or whatever? That would be cool. Just broadcast some remote ID for me so I don't have to... It doesn't. It won't. You can't make it. So, there you go. I got a little carried away with that character. I didn't mean to suggest that anyone who runs remote ID is a bootlicker. In fact, I run remote ID on my birds. Because if I didn't, I would be the first against the wall when the FAA finally gets their thumb out of their ass and decides to go after somebody, right? If I regularly thumbed my nose at the FAA, if I posted videos and was like, I don't have a spotter, I don't have remote ID, I'm at 500 feet, I don't give a flip, come get me, they would come get me. So I follow all the rules. I don't think I'm a bootlicker. I'm just a practical person who, you know, just doesn't invite trouble. Anyway. Woo! Frederick Grimes says, I keep killing the AIO on the Beta FPV Pavo 2.0 Pro. Is there any better AIO or stack that would be more recommended? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't buy that one again. If you'd killed it 2 or 3 times already, I would definitely buy a different one. Are the Flywoos any good? The Gep RCs? I don't know. Chat? What's the next AIO he should buy? Tell me something you've had a good experience with. Let's just watch the chat. I mean, I'm kind of surprised you're killing that many AIOs. Like, Beta FPV isn't like the top of the tier in terms of build quality. In fact, they can be very hit or miss. But why are you killing so many of them? Because lots of people don't kill that many of them. Since people like the SpeedyBF 405 AIO. The thing is, whatever else you buy, if you kill it too, then it's you. Yeah, how many did you kill? Asks Ciati FPV. Well, that's a turtle mode. How did you kill him?
He killed 3. I mean, I know because he asked
3.
the question again. Yeah.
3's not a small number. Raj FPV asks, what frame would you recommend for an almost 250 gram build with the 04 Pro? I got to tell you, Raj, hang on, let me get this. This little sucker here. This is a project that I'm working on. It's going to release probably next week or the week after. It's a sub 250 gram JB build. Ooh, you excited about that? We could not get this thing under 250 grams with the 04 Pro. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't do it. Like, this frame has a little bit more beef on it than maybe it ought to. It's a 3-inch, not a 3.5. I think it's going to be a real challenge to get the 04 Pro under 250 grams. So I don't know. I don't know what to recommend to you. Why not 3.5? Because 250 grams. 250 grams is the main reason, not 3.5. We did so much work. I mean, this is a brand new frame design. We did so much work trying to, like, can we shorten the arms? Can we make the plate thinner? And at the end of the day, we weren't willing to compromise. Like, oh, could we go to 1.5 millimeter carbon or instead of 2 millimeter or whatever? At the end of the day, this is the only way we could get under 250 grams with walk snail, video transmitter, 04 light, and analog. Yeah, it is metal in the front. It is. If you wanted to skip the 250 gram limit, then we could release a different motor plate, and you could go up to 3.5 inch. You could do whatever the hell you want. But anyway, more about that when the videos release. Proto 2.5 frame can fit the DJI. I'm not saying it can fit. Of course it can fit. But getting it under 250 grams will be a real challenge. Raj FPV used the AOS Cine 2.5 frame. That's a 2.5 inch. I think, well, he just said almost 250 gram. So I think maybe if you went down to a 2.5 inch frame, you could get the 04 Pro on there. Replace metal with prints for weight. Well, the metal front end is kind of like signature to the frame. We're not going to do that. Barrett Thompson asks, is there a way to recover a Radiomaster Ranger micro module that has the wrong target flash to it? Yeah, you have to put it in bootloader mode and flash it via the programming pads. And I cannot tell you how to do that. It's going to involve opening up the module, probably. Maybe you could do it over USB. You need to contact Radiomaster support, and they hopefully can tell you how to do it. Bags asks, what's the plural of mongoose? Mongooses or mongoose? Mongooses, clearly. Mongoose. No. Goose, geese. A mongoose is not a special case of a goose. It is a whole word all itself. Mongooses. Let's see if I'm right. Mongooses, yes. Google agrees with me. Yosferos. Good to see you again, Yosferos. When should I be concerned about the battery pack temp on a drone? Hang on. I remember a number. I'm going to verify the number. Yeah. So around 60 to 65 Celsius is where the electrolyte in the battery starts to break down. If the battery reaches, let's say, 60 degrees Celsius, that's definitely a problem. Above that temperature, you're actually at risk of thermal runaway. It doesn't happen every time, but you're at risk of thermal runaway. So I would say that's like the hard ceiling. But the challenge is that the batteries can be super hot on the inside and only warm on the outside, and you just don't know. So I don't know how much headroom you want to give. If you were like a really interested scientist, engineer type person, what you would do is you would build your own battery pack, and you would have a thermocouple inside the battery pack. So you could measure the temperature inside the pack. And then you would run the battery and you would measure the delta between the outside and the inside to know how much headroom to give yourself. But that's a lot to ask. Crom points out, going back to the question about the 04 Pro, Crom points out that the rubber quad Squirrel is under 250 grams with the 04 Pro. And that is a great flying little quad. I was not aware that it had an 04 unit. But yeah, that's a great quad. It's a 3.5 inch and it comes in under 250 grams. I have a new ESC with AM32, asks Sam Hay. Should I keep AM32 or flash Blue Jay? Stop. That is not possible. AM32 goes on 32-bit ESCs. Blue Jay goes on 8-bit ESCs. You cannot flash a Blue Jay ESC to AM32 or vice versa. Leave AM32 on it. Also, you don't have the option to do anything else. I just realized how clean your workspace is. Is it? I'm not so sure about that. It is incredibly cluttered. I've got a bunch of shit here. I got a bunch of shit over here. I got a bunch of shit on my workbench. I got a bunch of shit on the back there. I got shit everywhere. There's not a clear frickin' piece of table. So, no, I would not say it's clean. The floor is relatively clean. So, this is just how it is all the time. What's the ideal KV for a 7-inch 6S drone? Hopefully cinematic work chasing roller coasters. I don't know, like 1500 kV, 1700 kV at most. I don't know. I'm not sure I could guarantee you that. I mean, the 70 mile per hour top speed is going to also depend on the prop. But like on 6S 7-inch, like a cruising KV is like 1300 kV. And I think 1600 kV is typical, and then up to like 17 or 1800 kV for like hard freestyle. So I feel like I would probably like 1500 kV and you'll get there. Parsons Printwares asks, can FPV radios also run my planes that have Spectrum receivers? Maybe. It depends on what module is in the radio. If the radio has a 4-in-1 module, then it can bind to Spectrum receivers. You may notice there are some quirks in getting it to bind that are a little... Because with Spectrum radios, that just binds really easily because that's what it's made to do. There may be little quirks in setting it up. Also, if you have a Spectrum receiver with safe functionality where you flip a switch and the plane levels out, getting that set up requires a little bit of manual fiddling to make it work. But yes, a radio with a 4-in-1 module can bind to Spectrum receivers. That's a fact. Is it possible to connect a VRX to a set of glasses like the X-Real glasses? The X-Real glasses, for those who don't know, are augmented reality glasses. Oh, hello. Well, I didn't know she was going to be here. Oh, look, it's Trinity from The Matrix. It's a little hard to see, but underneath these awesome-looking sunglasses are these prism optics. And I wish I could see the damn glasses. Oh, hello, sir. What? Okay. Can I just see the actual glasses? No. So they've got these prism optics underneath those. These sunglasses are just shields. You can flip them out of the way and you can just look through the optics, but it's a little hard. Then you're seeing both things at the same time, and it's a little difficult. And they will take an HDMI input. I will say, I know people... Here you go. You can see the optics. Oh, not very well. I know people who have flown FPV drones with these before. I actually got to try this once for a very short period of time. Yeah, don't play with your child. Play video games. I love it. I love it. Ignore your child. Oh, yeah. Watch a movie. He takes another bite, sits back. Nice. Oh. Love it. The biggest challenge is that there's not very much contrast, especially if you don't have the little sun shields on. And if you don't have the sun shields on, focusing on the FPV feed and not the world outside you is very challenging, although it can be done. Yes, it can be done. It doesn't provide an optimal FPV experience compared to FPV goggles, but it does provide an experience that some people find useful or intriguing. Ironically, using X-Reel goggles probably would satisfy the FAA's requirement that you maintain visual line of sight with your drone at all times. Because you could have one eye focus on the FPV feed and one eye looking at the drone. Can the O3 air unit handle sitting on the bottom of the ocean for a week while being pounded by surf for a week? I would assume the answer is no. Saltwater's a bitch. I would say no, but I don't know. You tell me if you recover it. Any best HD0 65mm whoops, or is it even possible? Yes. Same one I recommended earlier in the stream. This is a big... The HD0 Freestyle Bind and Fly. 65mm, HD0, under 20 grams. What's not to like? Any news on the Remote ID Newbie Drone M10Q? I released a video about it. Is that why you're asking? Or did you miss that I released a video about it and you're wondering when I'm going to release a video about it, in which case the answer is like 3 days ago. I will say, let's test something. I have to test this. I tried... I got this... This is the Newbie Drone M10Q. It's a GPS with remote ID built in. And the selling point is that it configures and works just like any other GPS. There's no shenanigans. It just transparently does remote ID in the background without you really even knowing, which, you know, makes it easy to set up and use. I tested one and it worked fine. And then I tried to put a second one on an iNav bird and I could not get it to work. And now I'm about to find out whether it was a bad GPS unit, because this bird was working with a different GPS. So I should be able to just plug this GPS in and bing, bang, bong, it works. Right? Okay, well, apparently it needs a battery. Hold on. Let me get my smoke stopper here. I'm really curious if I have a dead one. Or if it's just... It wasn't dead. I mean, the LED was blinking and everything. Okay. No. Hello? It's not powering up at all. Is this the broken one? Oh, no, this is the broken one. Okay. So this one, I pushed the plug in, and it just broke the plug off with what I think was a normal amount of force. So this one's just fucked. Great. Trash. Where is the other one? Ah, here it is. Yeah, it's on this quad. No, that's the Flywoo. Where's the other Newbie Drone? Here it is. Okay. Okay. This is the Newbie Drone with the non-fucked connector. Okay, there we go. Powered up. Now, the question. Does it work? Yes, it's working. Okay, so it was something about iNav could not get this GPS working, but the GPS itself is not broken. That's good to know. I have no idea why I couldn't get it working with iNav. Everything was configured correctly as far as I could tell. And then I immediately just swapped it out for a Flywoo, and it worked fine. So technically it was a different drone. Maybe the flight controller had a problem. No, because again, I swapped it out for a Flywoo, and it worked fine. But the I was going to say, if this is a dead unit, then I'm going to be extremely something. That would be notable. It was not a dead unit. The GPS was fine. So, yeah. I've had good results with it so far. Does remote ID still work even though the GPS doesn't? Yes. The remote ID works whether it's connected to a flight controller or not. Let's see here. Caper Fishing just wants to say thanks for all your help. Could you help me with showing a video feed of my drone to my phone using the speed? No. If you want to get video feed on your phone for spectating purposes, what is the OTG receiver? You want something like this? Yeah, I got to tell you though, this is shitty. Don't buy this. It's shitty. It's terrible. There isn't a great solution for getting FPV feed onto your phone. The best solution is to have the HD0 goggles with the Wi-Fi module, and you can stream over Wi-Fi from the HD0 goggles to your phone. But that's like a $700 set of goggles, so that's asking a lot. Can you use DJI V2 goggles for anything other than DJI? You can use them with analog because they have an AV input, but that's it. What's remote ID? I just built my first drone. I'm not going to go into all of it. What I would suggest you do is find this video.
Remote ID is here. And if you fly a remote-controlled aircraft in the United States, it affects you.
Remote ID. Fight it, ignore it, comply with it. Turns out it doesn't matter. I'll put the link in the chat. Check that video out to learn more about what remote ID is. It is a set of requirements that if you fly drones in the US, the government expects you to register your drone and expects you to have a module on the drone that broadcasts the drone's location while you're flying. That's the short version. There are complexities and nuances that I'm not going to go into right now. So you should check out this video. And then I'm so generous with the ad placement on these older videos. Then you'll know what the government expects you to do. And then you can decide if you're going to do it. Somebody in the chat is annoyed. Somebody in the chat is annoyed that I'm not giving more love to the Lumineer Remote ID module. Well, and the Lumineer Remote ID module uses U-blocks. It is everything I love about the Newbie Drone module, at least as far as I can tell. Takes up to 8S input voltage. That's kind of cool. Has a built-in magnetometer. That's interesting. So that's something. The Lumineer one has a compass. The Newbie Drone one does not. That's a concrete advantage. The Newbie Drone is 5 volts. The Lumineer one is up to 34 volts. That's kind of cool. I wonder. What is this? Recommended, not included. What is that? What is that? What is that? Oh, I see. No, that's a separate. That's separate accessory. Sorry. I wonder if you can figure out why I'm more excited about the Newbie Drone module than I am about the Luminaire module. What could it be? What could it be? What could be different about these two modules that means I look at one of them and don't pay any attention to it, and I look at the other one and I go, oh, I'll talk about that one. I don't know. Something about them seems different. Could it be the price? Bonus points if you caught the church lady reference. The Newbie Drone one is $40. The Luminaire one's $90. There you go. I get a lot of things for $90 that'll do remote ID. I get nothing. Maybe I'll get nothing. Maybe I just won't buy it for $90. That's a lot of money. For $40, I'll spend $20 on it. I'll spend $20 or $30. I'll tell you what. You know what? My favorite GPS unit right now is the Maytech M10Q. It's just worked really well for me consistently. And I got to say, this Flywoo GPS that I put on this drone worked great. 25 sats. Okay, good. But I buy the Maytech M10Q out of my own pocket a lot. It's $40. That's an expensive GPS unit. I could switch to the Newbie Drone one and it wouldn't have a compass. So, well, maybe that's an issue. Maybe it isn't. But I'd be paying the same price. You ask me to pay $90, that's a lot more money. So that's why. Hey, Fabio, good to see you, man. No. Telegram is shut down right now because I'm streaming. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I see. Yeah, just ignore it and use the other one. Okay, good. Now I've read Fabio's messages. Whatever. Fabio's been getting out, doing some work on his own. I wish I had some video to show him, Fabio. I wish I had some video to show him. I'll show him some pictures, though. Somewhere. Where are the pictures you sent me, dude? Oh, here we go. Fabio sent me some stills from a project he worked on recently. Look at that. Ooh, okay. Right. Damn. I can't wait till he sends me the actual video, but the stills look hot. I'm not sure I'm really taking full advantage of Fabio's capabilities. Nice. There's nothing that annoys me more when I'm trying to, when I'm trying to color grade. Not that I color grade because I have a professional editor who does it way better than me. But when I notice when you're shooting around trees and grass that you get a green cast on the subject that is very difficult to fix. Because if you take the green out of the image, then you lose the brilliant green of the grass and the trees, which is annoying. But then if you leave the green in, then the subject has green on it. And it's a real challenge to fix that. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, that's my breakfast. That's what I had for breakfast this morning. I sent Fuss. And whenever I eat like fatty, greasy American food, I send Fabio a picture so he can remember his time in the country. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. Are the DJI V1 goggles worth buying? No, don't buy the DJI V1 goggles today. Pretty much for any price is the short answer. Oh, here it is. Here's the question from Raivi. Why is he dismissive of Luminaire's remote ID unit? Because it's pricey. That's why. Are there more super chats? Let's grab a couple more super chats. Travis Eastman, thanks for $10. I feel like you advise against it, but I want to upgrade my Nazgul Evoke V2 to 4.5. Any advice? Yeah, my advice is do a full config dump before you mess with it. And then have fun. Send it. As long as you save your config dump, you can always go back if you screw it up. The V1 goggles, the V1 goggles, what do they bind to? They don't bind to the O3. They only bind to the Vista generation. And that has been discontinued as of today. So you can't buy bind and flies with the Vista on it. You can't buy new Vistas anymore now that the O4 is out. I don't see any reason to buy the V1 goggles today. I mean, if someone gave them to you, you could probably find a way to make it work, but I just don't think you should put money into them.
All right, I'm going to go counterpoint.
Ah, damn it. Go.
I bet they're going to be really cheap. If you can get them for really cheap, I think it's still worth it because there's a ton of used Vistas. There's a ton of used Air units. There's a ton of cameras for those units out there. Like a ton. So, and there's still leftover, stuff that's still being sold. I think, I don't know. I think if it's cheap enough, I would definitely consider it as an entry because it's so cheap to get in, And then again, also N3 are pretty cheap. It's $220 for an N3 and
there you go.
$89 for an 04 Lite. However, the 04 Lite are having a lot of issues with durability, and apparently they're only replacing them in the EU for people for free, not the US. That's what I've been seeing in you. I don't know if you've noticed that. But I've seen multiple people in the US get charged with $100, but the EU is
consumer
getting them for
protections,
zero.
and the US has fuck you, the billionaires get your money. Is that about right? Yeah.
Yes, pretty much.
God, I wouldn't want to live in a country where the government is so onerous as to force companies to replace shitty products that break. Wow. Man. Boy, I'm sure glad. You know what? I have to... hold on. I have to console myself. Oh, say, can you see? For a minute, I was almost thinking that Europe was better than America. Oh, I see now that I was so wrong. You have a good point, Plenty. That's a good counterpoint. I don't think you're wrong. Okay, yeah. It's a good counterpoint. Oh, Surface Air Productions, thanks for a $5 super chat. Surface Air Productions has asked a zillion questions, and I've answered most of them. They're pertaining to the newbie drone M10Q. I believe I got all of their questions. What print or hanger are you using to mount your quads on the wall? You're not going to like it. .3M command hooks, medium. I'm pretty sure it's the mediums. It's not the designers, that's for sure. It's not the designer hooks. No. That's way too fancy. Utility hooks? Yeah, that's them. That's them. These are them. 3M command hooks, medium utility hooks. And then what I do is I take a rubber band and I loop the rubber band around the arm and back. So I hook the rubber band on the hook. I loop it around the motor and hook it back on the hook. and they just hang by one arm. Fabio, thank you for 2 Swiss francs. You can always fly me over for shooting. Just saying. I know. I do miss. I did have a good time when you guys were over. The second time, maybe I'll relax a little bit. The first time, I was like, I have to make this as amazing a trip as possible because it's the first time in the U.S. I think it was y'all's first time in the U.S. And I was your host, and I felt very responsible for your experience. Maybe the second time I'll, just relax a little bit. Maybe not. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the HD0 Halo flight controller? I mean, if you fly HD0, it's very exciting, isn't it? Hello? It's a flight controller, H743 flight controller, Gemini Diversity Express LRS receiver. I don't know about significantly enhance. That's a little bit of an overstatement, I think. Let's see here. No analog chip, though. Yeah, not designed for that. No HD0 video transmitter on board. And no built-in ESC. So it's just a flight controller with Express LRS on board. Huh. Why is my page not working? What's going on with this page? Let me reload this page. Shut up. I'm fine. I accept your cookies. There we go. $65 for a flight controller with a built-in Gemini receiver? I mean, as they say, Gemini receiver alone is often $25. Sounds like a good deal to me. I would be curious what pinout is on the ESC and what other ESCs are compatible with it. But I can repin. I can repin a flight controller or a cable if I need to. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Does it have a serial receiver or SPI? It's got to be series. I don't think SPI supports Gemini. Yeah, ESP32 plus 2XSX12. Yeah, okay. So it's series receiver. That's good. Yeah, very cool. McShaky FPV says, I watched your HDX videos, but my switches don't move the bars on the radio tab. McShaky, the number one mistake people make is they map the switches in inputs, not mixer. You have to map the switches in mixer. The next thing I would do is I would go to the radio's output screen and I would see if the channels are moving there. See if they're moving on the radio. Probably what you did is you accidentally mapped the switches on the inputs and not the mixer screen. Fabio says, you did amazing. By the second week, you were super relaxed. Implicitly, in the first week, you were super stressed out. Fair. I had a great time. Super Deluxe has been asking all kinds of philosophical questions in my live streams, and I just want to acknowledge that you exist, and you're very cute, but I also am not, like, feeling like playing along with the game and answering the questions. The truth is actually out there. I will say that. We have to believe that it is possible for us to find the truth. Otherwise, we give up. And not desiring to find truth means that you could just believe anything, whether it's true or not. And then when you have a disagreement with somebody, how do you know who's right? If you don't know what's true, then you can't make... You have a goal. Like, if you desire a given outcome, and despite the fact, you know, like, oh, I'm so enlightened, I'm such a Buddhist, I'm Zen Buddhist, I have no expectations and no desires. I'm probably mischaracterizing Buddhism, but... Like, no matter how enlightened you are, you probably would rather that, like, nobody punched you in the face, and you probably would rather that you got some food today, and you probably would rather have, like, a nice night's sleep, and, you know, and then if you're not just, like, a total ascetic, you would actually like to enjoy your life, you would like to spend time with your loved ones, you would like to have a comfortable house, you would like to have a comfortable life and happy life. So everyone has goals for their personal life. Everyone has desires for the society that they want to live in. You know, how that's structured. And so if you have desires for the world and how the world exists and interacts with you, then you have to be willing to seek the truth, because the only way to get a certain outcome is to understand truths about the world and the way the world works. And so if you don't believe that the truth is out there, then you can accomplish certain outcomes in the short term. You know, you can operate on the truths. There are layers of truth. Like, if I lie to enough people, I can get what I want out of them. And that's a truth. But that's you know, it's hard to keep those plates spinning for a long time. So, anyway. There you go. On the way to Gatlinburg, we stopped at Buc-ee's. Did we actually get the barbecue at Buc-ee's, or did we just look at it? I don't think we got barbecue at Buc-ee's. I think we saw the barbecue, but we didn't buy it. But I can't remember. Ooh, Blunty. Ha! You and I literally both pulled the trigger at the same time, Blunty. Literally, I saw message deleted by Joshua Bardwell, message deleted by Blunty. That's funny as shit. We had hamburgers the day before Gatlinburg. Sopa says, I'm going to fly the Geprcy Vapor D504 Pro in the mountains. Would you recommend ELRS 2.4, ELRS 915, or TBS Crossfire for the best Ranger penetration? I would probably recommend ELRS 915. Although I would also recommend that a 5-inch drone is not ideal for mountain cruising. Your flight time is going to be relatively short. You're probably going to get 5 to 7 minutes of flight time, and that's just not long enough to get like to the top of the mountain and back. So I suspect that your battery is going to limit your range to the point where your control link isn't going to be the determining factor. But if I had to pick one of those, I would pick ELRS 915. 900 megahertz is going to have a slightly better range and penetration. And between ELRS and Crossfire, I would take ELRS today. If you have 3 different but similar drones with the same ELRS packet rate, any reason not to use the same model profile in HTX? No, not at all. I use the same model for all of my ELRS drones on Betaflight and a different model for iNav. And the reason I use a different model for Betaflight and iNav is that the telemetry sensors, I think, are different. I'm not 100% sure about that. Maybe. I could double check. I wasn't sure that the ELRS telemetry sensors were identical to the Betaflight ones, so I used different models. Yeah, you can use the same one. Absolutely. Let's see here. Can I put clear shrink tube on a 400 milliwatt VTX, or will that cause it to overheat? It will make it heat up more, but I've put heat shrink on a VTX before and it's been okay. What would you want in a supposed GX16 after playing with the GX12 for a bit? I still think the AGO1 gimbals feel a little bit better than the gimbals on the GX12. I'm not complaining, but I do kind of like the AGO1 gimbals a little better. And on the GX12, it's a little frustrating that there are no... The face-mounted buttons are momentaries. I would really like a face-mounted 3-position. All the 3 positions are on the shoulder, and so you have to kind of reach around in a really... Hold on, I have the radio right here. So, like, right here on the front, this is where I want my arm switch to be. Right here. So as I'm flying, I can just boink, arm, disarm, right? So right now, these momentaries are essentially useless. Like, this one is my buzzer. And so if I crash my quad and I disarm and I lift up my goggles, I can go beep, 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 beep. That makes sense, right? But these buttons are most ergonomically appropriate when you're holding the radio like this and you just reach up and you grab the button. But when you're flying and your fingers are like this, how are you going to push this button? What are you going to you going to go like that? That doesn't work. So these buttons are really useless while you're flying, pretty much. I would love them to be a 2-position or a 3-position. Okay? Because, like, when I'm flying and I go to disarm, I'm flying and I'm pinching, right? And then I get ready to disarm and I go like this. Right? So I'm armed. I get ready to disarm. I can't really... What, am I going to go like this? No. That's not good. So I kind of just go like that to reach it. Now... on this side, it's okay. Like, I use this switch for return to home and loiter, and I can do that while I'm flying. It's okay. But I just feel like for arm and disarm, like I don't know. It feels really awkward. I would really like it to be like more positive, and having a switch on the face would be really nice. Is there anything stopping me from using any analog video camera with HD0 on a Whoop AIO? Yeah, the Whoop AIO, the HD0 Whoop, the AIO VTX, the camera, it has a single wire. It's not a MIPI cable, but it is not a standard definition analog signal. You cannot use any analog camera with that VTX. You have to use one of the HD0 cameras. It is a high definition analog signal. So it's basically not a standard NTSC signal, and the VTX will not work with a standard analog camera. Good question, but no. What's your go-to method for cleaning a drone crashed in the dirt? That's it. Like, if it literally had mud caked on it, I would, like, knock it off. But I'm not getting a freaking toothbrush with some alcohol on it, and, like, I don't care. As long as the lens is clean and the props are clean and the motors spin smoothly and don't have dirt in them, send it. I don't clean my drones. Jacob Densmore, thank you for a $5 super chat. I run a small Etsy store with 3D FPV parts. I want to add new items. Any ideas? No. Nope. If you run a store, you need to tell me what the hot new items are, because that's why you run the store. You know way better than me what items are selling, what items are not selling, what items your customers are interested in. Excuse me. Yeah. If you have to ask, so I feel like potentially you're just hoping I'll like promote your store. But like if you have to ask, no, you run the store. You tell me. Thank you, Bita This and That, for 5 New Zealand dollars. I'm turning my DJI FPV drone into a 10-inch long-range acro cruiser. Are you fucking with me? A 10-inch long range. Okay, I'm with you. How'd you turn your DJI FPV into a 10-inch? Doesn't it have like 7-inch props from the factory? Okay, whatever. 10-inch long range. Got it. Acro? 10-inch long range acro? No. Cruiser. Oh, well, yeah, sure, why not? All things to all people. Do the props run in or out? I don't know, dude. You've got the drone. Why are you asking me? Again, I just feel like you're fucking with me. Plug in a battery. Arm the drone. Which direction do the motors spin? Right? Is it a 5-inch? I don't even fucking remember. I mean, I thought it was larger than 5 inches. Maybe it's 5 inches. No one tell me what the actual dimensions of the props are. Ooh, up to 2% longer flight time. Wow, up to 2%? You mean it might be less? It might be only 1%? Because then, like, that's all there is. Why would you write that? Up to 2% longer flight time. Performance may vary. Yeah, so that bullshit. Oh my god. Just don't tell me the actual dimensions of the prop, whatever you do. It's ridiculous. 5146 Popo. I don't know. Maybe it's a 5-inch. Oh yeah, 5328. I thought it was bigger than 5-inch. I guess it's not 7-inch though. I don't know how you get inches on there.
5.3.
5.3. Okay.
If you are putting, I mean, if this isn't like some weird AI question or are you making something up, then just so you know, like there's code on there that has PIDs programmed for whatever props were on there, and the motors can only handle what was on there. And if you add more, you're gonna.
Yeah, the motors.
There's a lot of reasons why, even if there's clearance, who knows how they built it? Even if there's clearance, this isn't something you would want to do.
Those motors are going to melt on 10-inch props, right? The KV isn't right. Nothing is right. I don't know. This isn't a real question. Goggles X versus HD0 for both HD and analog. Oh, I hate this question. The HD0 is a much better analog goggle than the Goggles X. The Goggles X is a much better digital system for general use than the HD0. If you're racing, HD0, no question. For freestyle and cruising, I probably would take the Goggles X, because here's the thing. After a while, you're not going to want to fly analog very much anymore anyway, because it looks like shit compared to the digital, and you're just going to fly walk snail all the time. So I would say Goggles X, unless you race. Art of Lag, thank you for a $5 super chat. Just got into FPV, been flying my whoops for the last few weeks. Can't say how much your channel has helped get me set up. Just saying thanks. Thank you so much for the donation and the kind words.
Just an update.
Yeah.
He ripped it all apart and put it on a 10-inch drone frame, a carbon drone frame.
Oh, well, that's fine, but the motors are still gonna melt.
Right.
On 10-inch
and that's
props.
why I think this question is definitely bait, because you know if it's in or out. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Ryan Quellet, going back to the question about the HD0 box goggles, Blunty just making your life more difficult with the Livestream Clips channel. You're going to have to cut this back in. Well, you don't have to. You do whatever you want. Ryan Quellet has responded to the question about the receivers in the HD0 box goggles. I assume it's okay for me to share this. Since I just asked him and he answered, and he didn't say, okay, don't tell anybody. He says, we only use one RF receiver instead of two, so there's no diversity. But we built our own RF front end other than buying modules from others that allows us to achieve similar performance as Rapid Fire Fusion, even using a single receiver. In my own testing, I've found this to be the case. Rapid Fire does better at eliminating some interference, but the edge of signal loss, ours does as good or better. We've also completely redone the analog decoding end of the video pipeline at the hardware level in order to completely fix issues users have observed with HD Zero goggles analog low signal performance. That's very exciting, if true. When remains to be seen, obviously, when we test the systems, but that's exciting. So it says it does. They're not doing sync reconstruction, though, is what he's saying, or maybe they are. He didn't say. How do you get mud out of your motors? Thank you for a $2 super chat, Dean's Bees. First you take the motor in your hand and you go until it kind of starts to rotate. And then you turtle mode on the ground until the mud comes out. That's how I do it. I mean, if it's like sand or grit that's going to fuck up the magnets and stuff, then don't do that. That's how I do it. Compressed air would be my next choice. Justini asks, how do return-to-home failsafes actually work on long-range drones? Is the flight controller actually path planning it, or is it heading and altitude locked? It depends, Justin. The simplest thing it will do is, number one, it will ascend or descend to a certain desired altitude. Okay? You want to be careful because, like, let's say you fly over an obstacle and then descend and fail safe. If the drone simply turns and flies home at the existing altitude, it could crash into the obstacle. So there will be a configuration option to tell it how to decide what altitude to fly home at. And that could be ascend to a fixed altitude, use the highest altitude that you were at. There's various choices. So it will climb or descend to its configured altitude, and then it will turn towards home and simply fly straight towards home. However, Some flight control software like iNav comes to mind have the ability to retrace your steps. So it can actually back out the path that it flew to get in. So, Jacob Densmore. Oh, you're good, Jacob. No apology needed. No apology needed. I have a small store with a few random items, but unsure what folks need now. Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know what people need. The thing is, like, every store is trying to fill a different need without me really understanding, who your customer is and who you're trying to serve. I couldn't just like throw random suggestions to you with an idea that they would work. You got to have a picture of who you're. So whenever you come up with a business plan or a business idea, one of the things that you have to know is who is my ideal customer. And I don't mean ideal as in like the perfect, the best. I mean like if you think about like the perfect example of something. So like my ideal customer is a 30 to 40-year-old man with an income of X who's, you're thinking of characteristics that this person has, and they're going to come to your business, and your business is going to suit their needs. So I would say figure out who your ideal customer is, and then ask them what you need or what they want from your store. You know? Like, what do you have on your store right now? Some 3D prints. So, selling 3D prints is tricky. It's tricky. Like, why wouldn't you just have every 3D print you can find on Thingiverse? And then, we'll let people order what they order. Why wouldn't you go to another store? Like a store I promote on the channel sometimes is Noozle 3D. If I were you and I wanted to have an Etsy store, Noozle 3D, and I didn't know what to get, I would just go to Noozle 3D and all right. And I would just add all of these things to my store. The tank, Rotorite tank, add all of these things to my store. Skyliner Mark III, add all of these things to my store. Well, not the Skyliner. Fuck the Skyliner. No, I'm joking. I'm just messing with Drew. If he was watching, he's not watching. Right? I'm not suggesting you steal their STL files. I'm saying that a lot of these STL files are publicly available, so there's no shame in you also selling them. I'm not suggesting anybody watching this, like, hey, Bardwell just told him to go rip off Noozle 3D. No. I'm just saying, take their ideas. This is just market research. Everyone who has a store looks at other stores and says, what are they selling? This is just basic market research. Okay? I would just go look at other stores and be like, oh, that looks good. And the thing is, it costs you nothing to create a listing on your Etsy store. It's not like you have to pay up front for inventory. It's a 3D printing service. So you should have as many listings as you can. And then whatever people buy, they buy. That's my advice.
Oh, one thing in the chat, I saw like 4 or 5 people mention separately. Like O4 mounts. A lot of people want adapters to mount, like to get their frame to work with the O4. So like when you see, like for instance, a new product like that release or some demand for that, if you decided, like, hey, I'm going to be the guy who figures out all these things, and maybe you even like DM people in Discord or find people who have the frame that you need to make it for, and make the frame with that person, make it for that person. Now it's a free print that you get to send them, but now you have it on your website that nobody else has. Stuff like that is like another way to consider like what you could do that people would actually really want. Again, a lot of people have mentioned O4 mounts in the chat, and that's like something you can't find. So like that's another angle to go.
Good. I'm being told that Etsy charges 20 cents per listing. So the listings are not free. Fair enough.
Or something else.
Yeah. Thank you for $10 from Nicholas Clifford. I'm building a 3.5-inch drone and wondering if a 4S 750 battery is too small. No. I fly, so my 3-inch is going to fly on a 650 to get under 250 grams. I've flown on a 3.5-inch on an 850 and it was fine. So 750 seems okay. 1604 3800 kV motors for a 3.5-inch are a great choice. I think that's a great choice. And Ciati will agree or disagree with me. Andrew Kennedy, thank you for 10 Australian dollars. How is it doing, mate? I'm running 4S and on the verge of expanding my fleet. Should I build my fleet 4S or 6S? 6S. Is there a dramatic price difference? The batteries are a little more expensive. Not that much more expensive. Maybe $5, maybe $25 to $30. Maybe $35. Versus maybe they're maybe $5, $7 more expensive, but the batteries are more expensive. But just for 5-inch, that's just where you need to be. There's no question anymore. 5-inch 6S is where you need to be. Jacob Densmore, thank you for a $2 super chat.
Why are 6S batteries more expensive than 4S?
I don't know.
Is it just the way you have to assemble them? You have to put because you think the total cell.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, if we look, shop all batteries, 4S, 6S. Let's do a 4S 1500. 1500. About 1,000 milliamp hours. So a 6S 1000. Let's see if I can find that. Here we go. 6S 1000. 4S 1500, 6S 1000. 100C. This should be like the same number of grams of battery. They should be, oh, look at that. Wow, that's an old video. Boy, good times. 185 grams. Look at that young buck. 187 grams, almost exactly the same weight. So in terms of weight and in terms of watt hours, these batteries are equivalent. Except one is a 6S and one's a 4S. 4S is $24, the 6S is $29. $28. So why is it more? There's a little more soldering in putting it together, but I honestly don't know. Like, what justifies it? Maybe just demand. The 6S is more in demand. Honestly, don't know. Maybe the smaller cells are more expensive from the manufacturer. We could just speculate all we want. But 6S is the way. Like, this is penny wise and pound foolish. If you buy 4S if you build 4S drones because you want to save $5 a battery, I think that's a mistake. I think 6S for 5-inch is just clearly the way to go. Mike Konopka says, what are your thoughts on running two 3S in series versus a single 6S? No. Don't do that. First of all, like, there are lots of great 6S batteries sized for 5-inch drones. There are not as many great 3S batteries sized for 5-inch drones because most 5-inch drones are running 6S. So if you go looking for 3S batteries, they're all going to be more, I mean, yes, you'll find some 3S 1500 or whatever. or 1000s. You can find 3S 1000s, but they're not made for 5-inch drones because that's not where anybody's using 3S. They're made for airplanes. So they're not going to have the right C rating. They're not going to have the right dimensions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. How good is the SpeedyBee F405 AIO for something like a tiny trainer build? I would give it a try. People seem to like it. The big question is how robust is the ESC? And I think the jury is still out on that one. Brandon Beans, that was Freedom Spec. That was using 3S packs on 6S motors. That's really fun. That's a really fun spec. It still exists. All right, guys. Bobby Phi wants to know, would installing Edge TX on the Taranis X9D solve the problem with 1-bit and high baud rate issues without the need to do the hardware mod? That's debatable. I couldn't say. There's a chance that 1-bit mode would fix it, but there's a chance that it wouldn't, and I don't know. It's worth a try.
Yep. My understanding is that from what people have figured out, it's likely that there were different batches of the X9D Plus that got different quality of inverters based on what they were able to purchase. So sometimes the 1-bit is enough to clear up the noise on the front and back of the signal to get you a clear signal at a good baud rate. And sometimes it is not. So the best you can do is just install HTX and try 1-bit and then do that.
Either it works or it doesn't.
If it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. We're going to be wrapping up the stream real soon, and Ciotti FPV is going to be streaming. He's going to be editing some DJI 04 Lite footage, 2-inch versus 1.6-inch 04 whoops. And I'm going to be wrapping up pretty soon. No, it's not the Access Radio, Brandon. It's the 2015 one. So I don't think the 2015 one was Access. Mike Konopka says, let me rephrase. What are your thoughts on running 2 batteries in series versus a single battery? I mean, I would do it if I didn't have another option, but I wouldn't do it if I had another option. You're adding additional connectors. There's additional weight. It's just a hassle. I would prefer to just buy the right battery for my drone. But if that's not an option, it will work. And like on very big drones, like for 12S builds, that's always basically 6S in series, right? So like there's nothing inherently wrong with it. But for those 12S builds, it's like an XT90 connector and, 10 gauge wire or some bullshit like that. So like they're and the extra weight of the connector on a big 13-inch or a 15-inch drone is not that much. But on a little 2S drone, a little 2-inch or something, it can really add up. So just mounting the 2 batteries and strapping them to the drone without them all coming loose is kind of a pain. So I would prefer to just use the right battery. Why are people laughing at unbelievable people in events? Ask a question and you will be laughed at. There are literally no other messages from this person in the chat. What did I miss, Blunty?
I'm assuming it's somebody came in on an alt account that you laughed at earlier, but I really have no idea. I just thought it was an interesting comment.
Okay, is it a person we timed out?
Maybe.
Okay, well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
no context.
Either way, though, if you're on a live stream and you ask a question, sometimes it's going to be funny. And that's how it works.
Was it funny? I don't know. I wish I knew what question it was.
I don't know. I'm just saying there's a lot of questions every stream that people ask that we laugh at because they're funny. They're like a 10-inch drone on a 5-inch. You know what I mean? Like a DJI FPV drone. I don't know. That's a ridiculous thing to even build. So it's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite ELRS, dual or single antenna? I usually use a single antenna because I don't like mounting 2 antennas. I usually use single antenna. These days, the The 1121 receivers are kind of interesting because they can do dual band, although usually I'll just pick 900 or 2.4 depending on my intended use of the drone. But, like, I gotta say, though, like, this is not the drone I did the long-range flying on. I did some long-range flying. Long range. I got out to 1.5 kilometers before I lost video. Long range, not. I did it on this drone, and it had this 2.4 gigahertz receiver in it, and it got out to 1.5 kilometers no problem. But then I did it on a 5-inch, and I kind of wished that the antenna mounting on the 5-inch was not great, and it had lower RSSI than I wanted. And I kind of wished I had the ability to just switch over to 900 megahertz real quick. You know? So, those 1121 receivers, the XR receivers, those are pretty interesting. Anyway, we are going to wrap this up, and I will see you in the next one. Siati, have a great stream. It's been fun hanging out with you guys, and I'm going to go get ready to get on a plane tomorrow and go to Vegas and drive some race cars. Well, not race cars. Sports cars. High-performance exotic automobiles. And, you know, we'll see how that goes. What frame was that? That is the iFlight Chimera 7. Good night, everybody. Have a great stream.